Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we perform the crucial service of taking your sources, your notes, your research, the learning materials you've identified, and, well, we extract the actionable intelligence.
Exactly.
And today, we are tackling a really foundational, I think, and frustrating problem for learners all over the world.
It really is.
Which is, how do you stop sounding like, I don't know, an AI reading a textbook and start sounding like a fluent, natural human being when you speak English?
That is precisely the mission. Today, we're synthesizing the core principles laid out in the instructional content from a very, very focused resource.
Okay.
It's the initial outline and script for a YouTube podcast channel, and it's dedicated to solving this exact dilemma. The channel is called Learning English with Majy Talent.
Right, and the premise is just so necessary, isn't it? Their explicit goal, and they state this right up front in the material, is to bridge what they call the chasm between textbook English and real natural English.
A chasm is a good word for it.
It is. Because, as any advanced learner knows, the grammar rules you memorize in a classroom, they often feel completely useless when you're confronted with just the speed and efficiency of native speech.
It's a common, universal dilemma. The authors of this resource, they really pinpoint this frustrating paradox. You have students who often have high test scores, great written comprehension, huge vocabularies.
They've done the work.
They've done all the work. But when they enter a real conversation, they just hit two massive walls.
And the first wall is huge. It's that listening comprehension failure. The classic complaint, and this is what just paralyzes confidence, is I understand English when I read it, but when native speakers talk, I'm completely lost.
I'm lost.
It sounds like they're mumbling or skipping half the words. We've all heard that.
And then the second wall is on the production side. They struggle to sound natural when they finally reply. Their speech might be technically correct, grammatically perfect, but the rhythm is off. The phrasing is stiff, they sound way too formal. So they might be speaking perfectly, but they're not speaking fluently in that social sense of the word.
Right.
And so the instructional materials we're diving into today, they zero in on 5 pillars to break down these walls.
Okay, let's unpack those 5 pillars immediately.
Yeah.
Because these are the solutions that the creators of Learning English with Majy Talent identify as absolutely essential for getting that natural fluidity everyone's after.
Right. So first we have the foundational linguistic mechanics. That's mastering contractions and understanding this secret sound called the Schwa.
Okay.
Then we move to a more strategic level, focusing on core vocabulary and deciphering idioms. And finally, the component that really binds it all together.
Confidence.
Confidence. And we are going to explore why each of these is just fundamentally necessary for any learner who feels stuck.
Okay, let's start with the most immediate linguistic disconnect. We've all been taught the full, proper grammatical forms, I am, she will, they have. But what's that immediate signal that tells a native speaker, oh, you're reciting a textbook, versus we're just having a casual conversation?
It's the constant drive toward efficiency and speed. And the first major casualty of that speed is the full, uncontracted grammatical form.
It's the first thing to go.
The first thing. The source material is absolutely uncompromising on this point.
Right.
If you want to sound natural, you must use contractions.
Yep.
They say native speakers use the full form only for emphasis or really high formality.
This is so much more than just a grammatical preference, isn't it? It's a social marker. Saying, I'm going to the store isn't just wordy, it changes the entire tenor of the exchange.
It absolutely does. The full form signals distance. It's the language of, prepared statements, legal documents,
or when you're mad at someone.
Or maybe when you're frustrated and you're using that deliberate enunciation to make a point, right?
Right.
You will not do that.
Yeah.
But in casual, friendly conversation, using the uncontracted form creates this unnatural formality that can feel, alienating. When you use contractions, you signal ease, familiarity, efficiency.
Yeah.
You change the social dynamic from formal to casual, just like that.
But if these forms are so fundamental to native speech, and they clearly are, why do so many teachers, especially ones focused on academic writing, why do they often forbid contractions in formal papers or exams? Isn't that teaching a counterproductive standard?
That's a great question, and it really highlights the frustrating conflict between, let's call it academic English and conversational English.
2 different languages almost.
They can feel like it. Academic training, it prioritizes clarity and formality, where every single syllable is theoretically necessary to avoid any ambiguity. Conversational English, on the other hand, prioritizes speed and rhythm. So yes, the classroom often enforces a standard, that written academic formality, that actively runs counter to the goal of natural spoken fluency.
So the learner has to be smart enough to know which hat they're wearing.
Exactly. You have to understand you are learning two different registers, and contractions belong firmly and almost exclusively in the casual register.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics here, starting with the really foundational contractions of the verb to be.
We must internalize this list. It has to become automatic. I'm, you're, he, she's, it's, we're, there. The immediate shift from the formal "you are learning English" to the much more fluid "you're learning English" is the basic training.
It's like scales on a piano.
That's a great way to put it. The physical act of saying the contracted form trains your mouth for speed, and it trains your ear for recognition. You have to commit this to muscle memory.
And the source material correctly highlights a major complexity that I think confuses even advanced learners, this ambiguity that's kind of lurking within he's and she's.
Yes, this is where the structural grammar of English comes into play, and it's a brilliant point that the material raises. He's carries two distinct functions. It can mean he is, right, as an auxiliary for the continuous tense like he's running, or as a copula linking a subject to an adjective, he's happy.
Right.
Or it can mean he has. This is the present perfect tense. He's finished his homework.
So for a new learner, that sounds like a constant stressful mental calculation. How does the brain resolve that ambiguity so instantly in conversation?
It resolves it instantly because the brain doesn't just process the word he's in isolation. It processes the structure of the verb that follows it.
Ah, okay, the context.
The immediate context.
Yeah.
If he's is followed by a verb ending in an o-ing like running, or it's followed by an adjective like happy, it is functionally he is. There's no other option.
Okay.
If he's is followed by the past participle, the ed form like finished, or an irregular form like eaten, it is functionally he has. The word that comes right after it acts as the immediate structural disambiguator.
So this is why learning verb patterns is actually way more important than just memorizing a list of contractions.
100%. It's about recognizing the entire phrase, the entire chunk of language, not just one word.
And then if we shift to the to have contractions, we get I've, you, we've, and there. Again, all totally essential for speaking about completed actions or experiences. I've been there.
And just as common, if not more so, are the negative contractions. The source provides this extensive, highly necessary list: isn't, aren't, wasn't, weren't, hasn't, haven't, won't, don't, doesn't, didn't, can't, couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't. I mean, think about the sheer frequency of these.
It's constant.
It is. If you are saying, I do not know, or I cannot go, you are working significantly harder and sounding much more robotic than any native speaker.
I don't know is almost never pronounced fully. In fact, it's often reduced even further to something like I don't know, which leads us to this whole idea of compression that extends beyond just standard grammatical contractions. The source material teased this, but a deep dive needs to analyze that mechanism right now.
Absolutely. This is where we move from grammatical contractions, things that use an apostrophe like I'm, to what linguists call phonological reductions. These are the casual forms of efficiency that actually blur the boundaries between words. It's often called connected speech.
And the three big ones are?
The three great examples are going for going to, wanna for want to, and gotta for got to.
Okay, so what's the linguistic distinction here? Why are these structurally different from just I'm?
Well, grammatically, they're distinct because you're not just swapping a letter for an apostrophe. You're altering the pronunciation of entire words or collapsing the final sounds of one word into the initial sounds of the next.
Okay, walk me through going to.
Take going to. When you speak quickly, that final G sound in going is often dropped. It becomes more of a nasal end sound. And the word to is unstressed, so it gets reduced to the schwa sound, which we're definitely going to cover next.
Right.
So the result is going. This isn't formal grammar. It's pure acoustic efficiency. It's your mouth finding the fastest way to get from one sound to the next.
And this efficiency is just unavoidable in real-time conversation. If a learner is sitting there waiting to hear the clear sounds of I am going to buy, they are going to miss I'm going to buy every single time.
Every single time.
Okay.
Correct. The key takeaway from the authors of this instructional material from Learning English with Majy Talent is that these reductions, both the official contractions and these connected speech forms, they are mandatory. Mandatory for both comprehension and production.
You can't opt out.
You can't. You have to practice them. And the homework they suggest is brilliant. It's using contractions constantly for 24 hours, even when you're just talking to yourself. I'm pouring coffee. It's getting cold.
I love that.
It forces your mouth into the habit of native rhythm. It builds that muscle memory we talked about.
Okay, so if contractions define the efficiency of the grammatical form, the next concept defines the efficiency of the sound itself. This is the concept the source material calls life-changing because it unlocks so much of what we hear. We're talking about the schwa.
This is, and I'm not exaggerating, the single greatest secret of English pronunciation. The schwa, which is represented phonetically as schwa, is that relaxed central sound, like the A in about. Exactly. The authors correctly point out that it is the most common sound in the entire language, yet it is utterly absent from most beginner curricula.
That seems like an unbelievable oversight for the most frequent sound. How is that possible, and why is it so prolific? What does it tell us about the nature of English?
The schwa is so prolific because English is what's known as a stress-timed language. This is the key insight, the secret decoder ring.
Okay, stress-timed. What does that mean compared to other languages?
Well, unlike languages like, say, Spanish or French or Mandarin, which are generally considered syllable-timed, where every syllable tends to be given roughly the same duration and clarity. Exactly, a very machine gun-like rhythm. English dictates that certain syllables are stressed, meaning they're made louder, longer, higher in pitch, and everything else is reduced. It gets swallowed.
So we save all our acoustic energy for the important stressed syllables, and the unstressed ones just get the short shrift.
Exactly. The unstressed vowels collapse to the path of least resistance, and that path is the schwa. It takes minimal effort from your mouth, tongue, and jaw to produce that short, neutral sound down. So the concept that native speakers are lazy speakers, as the source puts it, is true in the sense that they are highly efficient. They are dumping energy from unimportant vowels to save it for the stressed ones.
And the learner who tries to pronounce every vowel clearly.
They are fighting the fundamental rhythmic structure of the language. They're trying to impose a syllable-timed rhythm on a stress-timed language, and it just sounds wrong.
This is where the challenge comes in, though, because I can hear a listener thinking, okay, but if I reduce all these sounds, won't I just sound like I'm mumbling? How do I find the right balance between lazy and clear?
That's a crucial question. But the beauty of the schwa is that it's not random mumbling. It is a systemic reduction. You don't just put the schwa everywhere.
It has rules.
It has rules. You only put it on vowels that fall in the unstressed position in a word or a sentence. So if you know where the stress falls in a word, you automatically know where to place the schwa. It follows a predictable pattern dictated by rhythm. It makes English pronunciation systematic, not arbitrary.
Let's make this concrete. We need to use the specific examples provided in the instructional content because hearing the pattern is everything. So let's take the word about.
Okay, if a learner tries to pronounce both vowels clearly with equal value, they might say A-B-W-T.
It sounds very deliberate.
A-B-O-W-T.
Right.
But the stress is firmly on the second syllable, B-O-W-T. Therefore, the initial A is unstressed, and it collapses to the schwa. It becomes woo-B-O-W-T.
K-B-O-W-T.
That's it. The entire sound profile of the word changes based on that tiny, efficient change.
And then there's the fantastic example they use, a banana. This one really showcases the power of having multiple schwas in a single word.
Oh, banana is the perfect example. It's often pronounced by learners as banana, giving equal weight and clarity to all three A's.
Right.
But in real speech, the stress is in the center. So it becomes bunano. The first A and the third A are unstressed, and they both reduce to center. The word is acoustically bookended by this efficient sound. The stressed syllable in the middle carries all the energy.
Once you hear it, you can't unhear it.
You can't. And for longer words like America, the schwa is doing some serious rhythmic lifting.
Okay, break that one down.
Yes. The stress is on the second syllable, mer. So the first A reduces mer, and the final A also reduces amiriku. Wamiriku, miriku. If you try to pronounce America with clear, full vowel sounds everywhere, A-M-E-A-A, you sound incredibly slow and formal, and frankly, you're using way too much energy.
So understanding the schwa is really the acoustic key. It unlocks rapid listening comprehension because once you start expecting that reduced sound, you stop trying to hear the full sound that isn't even there.
You're no longer listening for letters. You're listening for stress patterns. So the goal laid out by the hosts of Learning English with Majy Talent is for the learner to become an active listener. You're listening not for what is written on the page, but for what is rhythmically necessary in the sentence.
That's a great way to phrase it.
Exactly. That pattern recognition is vital. They recommend you watch movies, listen to news reports, and focus on those unstressed words, especially the little function words like the for, to, and the weak syllables in longer words. Ask yourself, is the speaker using a full vowel sound here, or is this being reduced to that ubiquitous frame?
And if you practice producing it yourself,
Then your ear naturally tunes in to recognize it when other people speak. It's a two-way street.
Okay, so we've established the rules of sound reduction, contractions, and the schwa. Now we need to shift the focus to vocabulary strategy. Because, as the source points out, knowing 10,000 obscure words is totally useless if you don't know the 100 most frequent ones.
This section of their curriculum targets a very common trap. It's the trap of prioritizing impressive, low-frequency vocabulary over the indispensable functional language that you need every day. It's an issue of priority management in your learning.
I love the little story they use in the material. The anecdote about the student who knew the word magnificent, but was completely lost without the critical verb get.
Yes.
It just perfectly captures that misplaced effort.
Magnificent is descriptive. It's a nice word to have. It's useful. But get is connective. It's dynamic. It's essential to simply navigating a conversation. If you don't master the dozens of functions of get, you can't really participate in everyday dialogue.
You can't get by.
Can't get by. Exactly.
Yeah.
The authors of the source material argue that mastering these core verbs is the absolute prerequisite for having real conversations.
Okay, let's list those top 10 verbs that the curriculum emphasizes. These are like the foundation stones of daily English.
They are be, have, do, say, go, get, make, know, think, take.
So simple.
They look deceptively simple because they're all, one syllable and they appear in almost every sentence. But that simplicity hides enormous complexity.
And the complexity, as the material suggests, stems almost entirely from their role as the engine room for phrasal verbs.
Oh, yes.
A linguistic structure that sends chills down the spine of every single English learner.
Phrasal verbs are the ultimate test of situational fluency, and they are incredibly dense in meaning. A phrasal verb combines one of these core verbs, like get, with one or sometimes two particles, prepositions, or adverbs, like up, out, by, over.
And the killer is the meaning changes completely.
That's the key difficulty. The combination usually results in an idiomatic meaning that bears little or no resemblance to the original core verb.
Let's use get as our example for this deep dive, just to demonstrate how the particle completely alters the semantic meaning.
Great choice. So consider the verb get, which primarily means to receive or to obtain. But watch what happens when we just attach these simple particles. Get up. It changes from receive to rise or leave your bed. Completely different.
Right.
Get across. That changes to make something understood. Like, I struggled to get my idea across in the meeting. Get by. This changes to manage or survive with minimal resources. We can get by on this salary, but it's tight. Get over. This one means to recover from an emotional or physical difficulty. He needs more time to get over the breakup.
And what about when you have more than one particle?
Like, get around to it. This triple particle combination means to finally find the time to do something you've been procrastinating on.
Wow. So that one verb, get, suddenly unlocked 5 dramatically different functions just based on the little word that came after.
Exactly. So if you don't learn these phrasal units, these chunks, you're going to miss the vast majority of native interaction.
And that leads us perfectly to the powerful strategy recommended by the source material. The 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, but applied to vocabulary. The statistic they highlight is just staggering.
It really is.
Yeah.
The most common 1,000 words in English make up approximately 80% of everyday conversation.
80%. That figure should be so deeply encouraging to any learner who just feels overwhelmed by the sheer volume of the English dictionary. It encourages smart learning.
It absolutely lowers the barrier to entry, and it provides focus. Instead of trying to study the dictionary alphabetically, which is insane, or Daisy, you should acquire those first 1,000 words. And that's the high-frequency core verbs we just listed. The function words like prepositions, conjunctions, articles, and the most common adverbs.
And once you have those,
mastering those 1,000 words gives you near total comprehension of casual dialogue. And that allows you to focus your remaining energy on recognizing and producing these natural structures we've been talking about, like contractions and the schwa.
And one of the largest structural challenges that you find in this high-frequency natural language is the use of idioms. These non-literal fixed expressions that confuse learners because they make zero logical sense when you translate them word for word.
Idioms are cultural and linguistic shorthand. As the source explains, the literal translation fails because the meaning is fixed to the entire phrase, not the individual words within it.
Right.
If a learner encounters the phrase, she spilled the beans, and they translate it word for word, they're focused on, liquid and legumes.
They're imagining a can of beans on the floor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not the intended meaning, which is she revealed the secret.
Let's look at a few more examples just to go beyond the piece of cake and break the ice ones and illustrate the scope of this problem.
Sure. Take bite the bullet. Literally, a very painful act. Idiomatically, it means to face a difficult or unpleasant situation with courage and fortitude.
Completely abstract.
Or hit the nail on the head, which has nothing to do with carpentry. It means to describe a situation perfectly or accurately. These phrases are what linguists call lexical chunks. They're prefabricated units of meaning that you have to acquire whole. You can't build them from the parts.
So the message that's reinforced by the hosts of Learning English with Majy Talent is crystal clear. Fluency requires embracing the non-literal and the metaphorical dimension of the language.
Yes, and they make it clear that they are dedicating future deep dives to decoding these structures, which is critical.
Why so critical?
Because idioms are so often used in high-stakes situations, negotiations, emotional discussions, explaining complex concepts. If you miss the idiom, you miss the core meaning of the conversation, regardless of how well you know the surrounding grammar.
Okay, we've established the essential linguistic toolkit, right? Contractions for rhythm, the schwa for sound, strategic vocabulary, and idioms for content. But all of those tools, they remain locked away in the toolbox if the learner is too fearful to actually use them.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the psychological component, the X factor, which the source material argues is the #1 thing holding people back.
It is the difference between being a perpetual student and becoming a fluent speaker. The core psychological enemy here is the fear of failure. People achieve a certain level of proficiency, a comfortable plateau, and then they just stop speaking.
Why?
Because they are terrified of making a mistake that might lead to embarrassment or correction. So they seek safety, they stay within their comfort zone.
And as the resource points out, the comfort zone is the place where progress goes to die. By avoiding speaking, they are actively halting the entire acquisition process.
This is why the central teaching point, the mantra they provide, must be internalized. Mistakes are your best teacher. This reframes the entire exercise. A mistake isn't a failure.
It's data.
It's a data point. It's an opportunity for rapid, personalized feedback that tells your brain exactly what needs to be adjusted.
Why do adult learners struggle with this concept so much more than kids? I mean, children make errors constantly when they're learning to talk, and we celebrate it.
Adult learners often impose this crippling standard of perfection on themselves, and it's usually rooted in their schooling experience. They feel that if they can't achieve 100% accuracy, they shouldn't speak at all.
All or nothing.
All or nothing. They forget that language is a developmental, messy process. Viewing a correction as a gift, as the source suggests, is essential because that gift immediately provides you with the correct pathway forward. It accelerates your progress much faster than passive memorization ever could.
Let's detail the two contrasting psychological patterns that are discussed in the material. They talk about the negative cycle versus the positive cycle.
Right. The negative cycle is what traps most learners. It starts with a fear of error. That fear leads to avoidance, meaning silence. That silence causes your existing knowledge to become rusty and inaccessible, which then just reinforces the initial fear.
It's a self-perpetuating stagnation, a downward spiral.
Exactly. It just gets worse and worse.
And the positive cycle is the virtuous path out of that.
The positive cycle starts with one thing: action. Speaking. Regardless of error, that action leads to mistakes and correction, which is just data. That correction leads to immediate learning and adjustment, which in turn builds comfort and confidence.
And that confidence.
That increased confidence generates the desire for more speaking, which accelerates the whole loop. You have to break the negative cycle by forcing that initial terrifying action.
But how do we manage that powerful internal critic? The voice in your head that says, wait, that contraction isn't perfect, or your schwa sounds too nasal.
You manage the critic by lowering the stakes. The authors of the content we've reviewed, they stress that practice doesn't always need a live, judgmental audience. The practical homework they provide is brilliant for exactly this.
Which is?
Consistent, low-stakes, daily practice.
This means speaking English every single day, even if it's only for 5 minutes, and just narrating your own routine.
Precisely. You narrate your life out loud, and crucially, you incorporate the linguistic lessons we've just discussed. When you're making coffee, you say out loud, "I'm making breakfast." using the contraction. When you describe the food, you focus on reducing those unstressed syllables.
You're getting the schwa practice in.
You're practicing on yourself, your pet, even a houseplant. It doesn't matter, because the goal is not external validation. The goal is consistent muscle memory training. The act of speaking itself is the primary objective. That is what feeds the positive cycle.
This has been an incredibly focused, deep dive into the initial strategy for achieving that natural English proficiency, synthesizing the foundational lessons of the instructional channel, Learning English with Majy Talent.
The map they've laid out is just so focused and so actionable. If you are struggling between theory and real-world application, the solution involves these 5 pillars.
Let's recap them.
You're embracing contractions and reductions for conversational speed. You're mastering the schwa for acoustic rhythm. You're focusing on the high-frequency core verbs and phrasal verbs. You're acquiring idioms as fixed units of meaning. And crucially, you're building confidence by actively speaking and reframing your mistakes as necessary data.
The value proposition here really is efficiency. By focusing on that 80-20 rule of vocabulary and the necessary linguistic shortcuts like the schwa, the authors of the source material are providing a pathway for learners to feel fluent much faster than traditional methods might allow.
It shifts the entire mindset. You are no longer just a passive recipient of grammar rules. You become an active trainer of your own mouth and your own ear. You're training yourself to communicate like an English speaker, not just write like one.
And the creators of Learning English with Majy Talent are very clear about the continuous nature of this learning process. This is just the starting line, right? Not the finish line.
Absolutely. To truly bridge that gap between textbook English and real English, you need momentum. And they explicitly ask their audience to join their community, to subscribe to the channel, and to turn on notifications.
Why?
Because their curriculum is designed to build systematically. Each episode relies on the fluency that you've gained from the previous one. This is all about establishing a lifelong habit of fluent, confident practice.
So we encourage you to follow the curriculum of Learning English with Majy Talent if this strategy resonates with you. But before we go, the source material introduced a fascinating pivot for their next planned deep dive, something we should leave for our listeners to consider.
Right, so we focus mostly on grammar, rhythm, and psychology. But their next subject is purely physiological. It's about the difficult physical challenges of English pronunciation. Specifically, those sounds that often don't even exist in a learner's native language.
And they specifically mention the notorious.
The TH sound.
Ah, yes. The sound that requires pressing your tongue between your teeth. Something that feels utterly foreign and, frankly, a little awkward to speakers of many languages.
Exactly. And this raises a whole new question for you, the listener. We've established that confidence is key, but what are the sounds unique to English? Like the voiced and unvoiced TH sounds in this and three that pose the greatest articulatory hurdle, regardless of how many contractions you use or how confident you feel.
So how does the physical requirement of a sound create a barrier to fluency?
That is the next fascinating layer of language acquisition we encourage you to explore.
A perfect transition from the mental game to the physical requirements of speech. Get out there, start your narration practice, use those contractions, and really listen for the schwa.
And remember, every mistake you make today is simply data that makes you smarter tomorrow. You've got this.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.